now we're ready for the big moment. Time to download and unpack the StatusNet package. We're going to use a command called wget. What this does is similar to downloading a file through a web browser. This will download a file using our command line. We'll type in the URL to download StatusNet. At this time, the latest version of StatusNet is 1.10 Alpha 1. It's located at http://status.net/status-1.1.0-alpha1.tar.gz. Now our Ubuntu server will go out to that address, look for the file, and download it. If this file is no longer available, try bringing up a web browser to get the latest version. You can do that by simply bringing up your favorite web browser and going to the StatusNet website, http://status.net. Click on Open Source and click the Download StatusNet now. You'll see that the latest stable release is 1.101, but the development version is 1.1.0 Alpha 1. This is the version that we're going to install now, and you'll notice this is the URL we typed in the wget program. You'll also notice that I didn't use sudo for this command. That's because normal users can download files to the home directory. We will use sudo, however, in a minute to unpack this package into our Ubuntu server. So you notice that the Ubuntu package was 11 megabytes. If I type in the ls-l, you'll see now that in my home directory, I have the StatusNet tar.gz package. To unpack this tar.gz file, I'll type the sudo command and the tar program, which will unzip this tar file. We'll use the Z, X, and F options. Then we'll type in the file name. Again, you can use tab to autocomplete the file. That saves you a few typing strokes. Hit enter. Now when I type ls-l, you'll notice not only do I have the tar.gz file, but I now have a StatusNet 1.1.0-alpha1 directory. This directory needs to be placed in your World Wide Web directory for Apache. So to do that, we'll use the sudo mv or move command. We'll tell it to take StatusNet 1.1.0-alpha1 folder and move it to /var www.statusnet. If I change directories to the var www folder and type ls-l, you'll see my StatusNet folder is now here. This is the same folder that we just had in our home directory, but renamed it from StatusNet 1.1.0-alpha1 to just StatusNet. Now we'll change some ownership and permissions to some key folders within this StatusNet folder. First, we'll make sure to change ownership using the chgroup command space www-data var www.statusnet, end with a /. To see what effect that had, I can type ls-l, and you'll notice now that the StatusNet folder is owned by root, but the group has been changed to www-data. This is so the web server can access the files that are in this directory. Now we'll do the same thing and change group for a few other key folders. Each command will start with sudo chgroup for change group, the name of the group, www-data, and the folder that we want. In this case, we'll choose the avatar folder. We'll do the same thing for the background folder, and lastly, the file folder. Now all four folders are owned by the www-data group so that the web server can access these folders. Now we'll also change permissions using the sudo chmod command. We'll type in sudo chmod g for group plus w to make sure these are writable by the group. We'll choose the var www.statusnet folder. We'll do the same thing for the avatar folder, once again for the background folder, and lastly for the file folder. Now we've unpacked and downloaded the latest StatusNet files. The other thing that StatusNet is going to need is a database to store and record all the microblog posts. So we'll change directory to our home directory and we'll clear the screen to start with a blank slate. We're going to run a command as sudo called mysqladmin. This is going to help set up permissions and create a database for StatusNet. Tell it to use the -p to prompt us for a password, the create command to create a database, and we'll call our database StatusNet. Hit enter, and we're now prompted for the MySQL admin password. Now remember, this is different from the login password when we installed MySQL. This password is MySQLPWD, and there you have it. The other thing we'll do, we'll configure the MySQL database to have an admin user called snadmin. To do this, we'll enter the MySQL prompt with sudo mysql-p. We'll enter the MySQL password again, MySQLPWD, and now we see that we're in the MySQL prompt. From here, we'll type in a command called grant all on, and this is case sensitive, statusnet.star, then hit the enter key to snadmin at localhost, single quotes between snadmin and localhost. Hit the enter key, identified by, and now we'll enter a password. Again, hopefully your password is a little more secure, but for now, we'll choose football and end with a semicolon. You should get no error messages and an OK prompt. Now we can exit the MySQL command prompt using the command exit, and we're brought back to our StatusNet prompt. Now we'll enable the fancy URL feature for StatusNet. We'll change directories to /var www.statusnet. Then we'll run the copy command using sudo cp for copy. We want the htaccess file .sample, and we're just going to copy it to a new file called ht.htaccess. Now we'll use our command line editor in order to make some modifications to this .htaccess file. So we'll run the sudo command, our command editor, and the name of our file, .htaccess. Once again, we're brought to our nano text editor, and we'll use the arrow keys to go to the line that says rewrite base. We'll change this directory to just read StatusNet as our base directory. We'll use Control-O to write this file out. htaccess is the name of our file, so we'll hit enter, and Control-X to exit our text editor. And once again, we'll restart our Apache server. Sudo service apache2 restart. Before we begin the next step, we need to make sure that we have an IP address or network address that can be seen by our host computer. If you remember when we configured Oracle VM VirtualBox, we had used NAT routing as our networking. This time, we need to choose bridged networking. Of course, you can do that when you go to install and configure the Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager at the beginning. But since we already have our StatusNet server up and running right now, we can simply go up to Devices and choose Network Adapters. You'll notice that under the Network option, I'm using NAT routing. I need to change this to Bridged Adapter and choose whichever network adapter I'm currently connected to the internet on my host computer. In my case, I'm using a wireless connector, and I'll click OK. Now the StatusNet Ubuntu server has not caught up with the new IP address, so we need to restart the networking. We could either issue the shutdown command and restart our StatusNet server, or we can type in sudo etc init.d/networking restart. We'll enter our sudo password. If you're not prompted for a password, don't worry about it. It just means that you've already entered your sudo password earlier, and we've reconfigured the network interfaces inside the Ubuntu server. Now the next step is to see what IP address we currently have assigned to this Oracle virtual server. If we type the Linux command ifconfig, we'll get a listing of different Ethernet and network adapters connected to this server. Look for the ETH0 and look second line down that says iNetAddr. This is your internet address. You notice mine is 192.168.254.46. This is my public IP address that I can access using my host server. So if I bring up my favorite web browser and type in that IP address, http://192.168.254.46, you'll see I'm able to connect to this Linux server website. If you get an error message That either means you haven't got the network configured correctly, or you may have to restart your StatusNet server. Now I can type in the StatusNet /install.php file, and this will begin the StatusNet installation configuration. For my first StatusNet install, I'm going to call my site name edustatusnet. You'll notice that fancy URLs are enabled, and now I enter the database settings. The host name is localhost, and we have the MySQL database type. The name of the database I created earlier was just called StatusNet. Do you remember the database username? It was snadmin, and the database password was just FOOTBALL. No 8, just football. Now we're asked for the administrator settings. The administrator is the most powerful user in the StatusNet platform. In my case, I'll just type in Matt, and I'll choose a StatusNet password. Again, this is different than every username and password on the system. This is just your StatusNet administrator. So for my password, I'll choose MATTPWD. But hopefully you choose a more secure password than that. Confirm our password, MATTPWD. And we'll enter our administrator email address, edustatusnet@gmail.com. You can feel free to use your own email address. Lastly, we're going to configure our site for the type of site we want to use. If you choose private, this is the most secure offline version of StatusNet. However, you won't have the option to include attachments like pictures or files. If you choose public, then anyone on the internet can access your StatusNet server. A good medium is the community profile. This is an invite-only but publicly available StatusNet profile where you can have attachments included. Once you change the site profile, it's made permanent and very difficult to change. So think carefully about the type of StatusNet server you want to run. I recommend the community profile. Click Submit, and you'll see all the things that StatusNet created and installed. You shouldn't see any error messages, but instead see the done. You can then type in this IP address to access your StatusNet server. And here is our StatusNet server up and running.